I think Nick McLean said that more than 50% of leads convert after 6 or 12 months. I can't remember what the number was.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Reside Platform podcast. I'm your host today, Suneet Agrawal, and with me today is Cody Burger. He's a brokerage owner and a team leader who's transforming the way agents think about leverage, culture, and growth. You know, Cody took his brokerage and kind of turned it around with a teamerage vibe, blending the structure of a brokerage with the leverage of a team by implementing systems and tripling down on culture and accountability and hopefully a little KFR. Cody has built a model where agents thrive and the business grows stronger every single day. Cody, I am pumped. What is going on, dude? How are you?
I'm well, Suneet. I'm well. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Real quick, what's the name of your market? What's the city you in?
Dubuque, Iowa.
Dubuque, Iowa. All right. How do you spell Dubuque?
Dubuque.
All right. I like it. Dubuque. I like it. So before Cody and I were talking before this episode started, he goes, "This is kind of full circle." Cody, why is this full circle, dude?
Been a brokerage owner for about 5 years, and we'll get more into that, I'm sure. But started listening to Ethan Butte on Team OS podcast, and one of his interviews was with this guy named Nick McLean. And I'm like, this guy kind of seems like he knows what he's talking about with running a team. So then I found out about Reside, and I started listening to some Reside podcast. And and then I got a hold of Nick, and then I got to talk to John Cheplack, and here I am on the Reside Platform podcast a year later.
Yes, that's great, dude. That is so cool. I love to hear that. Good. Okay, so back into the content. So, in the intro there, I quoted you. Is that leverage is the key to agent success. What does that mean, bro?
Well, I think this is really where I started going into the team concept. I think one of the biggest issues that I see in our industry, two things, is agents getting moving in the industry. I think there's a reason we have an 87% failure rate in the first 3 to 5 years of being in the business, because I call it SOAP: systems, opportunities, accountability, and processes. So without that, a lot of agents kind of flounder in the first 5 years. But then on the flip side, the agents that do really well, this isn't a job that you can just turn off like you clock out at 5. So if you're doing really good, you do really well, but then you can hit that burnout really quick. And that's where I see agents on the other end of the spectrum struggle. And that's where I said, I think we can build a team that services both. And then at the brokerage side too, we offer a lot of a la carte stuff. We offer some coaching, we offer transaction coordinating. On the team side, all that stuff's built right in, but agents on the brokerage side get to tap into almost all the resources that they want.
Yes, I love that. So when you talk about leverage for like agents on the brokerage, you said you have a la carte services. What are some a la carte services that you guys have on the brokerage side?
I mean, really, I think it's anything that I really try to focus with our agents what their time is worth. Entering listings, creating marketing content. I've got a couple agents that have sourced their own VA that will do some of this stuff for them, which I think is awesome. But if they don't want to do that, we do a lot of the marketing, templated transactional marketing, just sold, under contract, price reduced, open house, that kind of stuff. Because number one, I found it creates inconsistencies when we've got 60 different agents doing marketing 60 different ways. So it helps control the brand image. But then I found that our director of marketing a lot of times is able to create a more polished look that actually puts a better piece of content out there. In transaction coordinating, if agents want to tap into transaction coordinating, or they're not doing their own paperwork, I have some agents that, hey, I'm in a slow period right now. I can handle this one deal. But then all of a sudden they'll have 8 deals under contract, and it's like, I got to offload any kind of paperwork that I can.
Oh, yes. You got to use a TC. I didn't use a TC once, and it was the hardest deal. It was like my 5th deal. I said, I might as well learn how to do this. A couple thousand deals later, I haven't. It's like, nope.
Good. Tell agents there's no sense for you to learn that. Like, I just need to know what time the watch says. I don't need to know how the watch ticks.
Ooh, good analogy, bro. Good analogy. So now in the brokerage, you have the indie side and like the teamerage side, right? So the brokerage side is more of the a la carte services, do what you want, a little bit of soap, right? Maybe not as many opportunities handed out, maybe versus the team. So did I nail it on the difference there, or is there more?
No, you hit the nail on the head. I think traditionally we've been a large brokerage. And I think the biggest frustration that I saw was new agents coming into the industry. We're really heavy on recruiting, especially new agents, bringing them into the business, training them, showing them how to do the business. But what I would see is agents, and I don't think anybody gets into this business with the idea that, hey, I'm going to go quit my job, have no guarantee of a paycheck, spend $3,000, and I hope I fail in real estate. Like, that's just not something that anybody thinks of. But what ends up happening, the reality of it is, number one, we talk a lot about sphere in our business, and it's awesome when we can do only sphere business. But as an agent, let's be real, it takes a long time for your sphere to get to a level where it can 100% support you as a brand new agent.
How do you scale your sphere business?
How do you scale it?
Yeah, time.
Yeah, time. And, I think that one of the big things, so I guess to go back, what I got tired of seeing is agents coming in, 1 out of 10 would just absolutely kill it. The other nine would kind of float around for 6 to 12 months. And this was, it's exciting at first and it's really cool. And I don't have a boss. And then I'd see them come in and they'd come to the team meetings, maybe a training. And then it's like, well, I don't have anything to do, so I'll go home. And then that becomes a slippery slope. And within 12 months, hey, I'm going to get a part-time job. And I just immediately see that as the beginning of the end for them. And then, hey, I'm going to change brokerages or go to a low cost brokerage where there's no monthly, or I'm going to put my license inactive.
Yeah.
So I got tired of seeing that. So that's where I really wanted to like get in. There's a lot of reasons I started a team, and we can get into that. But
Well, okay. So you have let's talk about systems and tech because you got a big old stack, right? Not only are you part of Reside, so you get to deal with all my madness all the time, but Follow Boss, Ylopo, well, you have Digital Maverick too, Zillow. Let's talk about like your stack, what tools you're using.
we have tools for both sides of the house. For our brokerage side, we use Lofty, and
Cool.
agents can choose whether or not they want to. Some agents are, very heavy sphere and they don't want to use a CRM at all. And then the agents that do want the CRM, we turn on what's called a seat for them. Yeah, so they have a website, they have a CRM. We have Loop on both sides, agency side and the team side. But the team side, I think a big component of it is I tell the agents on the team, if you just surrender to the process of coming in, we're going to coach you, we're going to train you, but then there's leads in the database, and we work with Sisu. We have Batter, which is a lead accountability tool that any company generated leads that get put into an agent's name. It's an accountability tool not only for them and us, but more so as a reminder of them. I think I go back to the human nature of it isn't, hey, I'm going to take this lead and I hope I drop the ball on it. But as we get more and more new leads, and we've got a million other things going on in our business, that lead that came in 3 weeks ago, it's really easy to forget about that lead and just let it fall through the cracks. And there's nothing worse as an agent than when you check the hot sheet in Paragon and you see that lead that you showed 5 houses to, and all of a sudden you see their name flash up as a buyer, and it's like, oh, I didn't do my job and follow up with that. So Batter takes care of that for us. But the integration with Follow Up Boss, we're moving. We just got approved. We're moving to Zillow Flex. We've historically been a connections team. So for our agents, it's literally just come in, train, coach. Nick McLean talks about it, the ideal weekly schedule, and then activity block. If you have showings, go on your showing block, and then you're right back into an activity block. We're very heavy on that.
Good. So Follow Boss is a big part of your team, right? How do you and your agents maximize it for the best results, bro?
So part of being linked in with Sisu, I mean, everything that we do is how to follow a boss. And I'd say if you're running a team, I don't know that I looked at everything. I had decision fatigue, looking at all the different softwares and options out there. But Follow Up Boss has been, I would say, if you're just going to dabble in it, it's really probably not the software for you because you really have to go all in. But if you get in there and really get things dialed in, the system, I remember listening to a podcast that Kyle Whistle was on, and he said, we set up the systems run the company. And that's really how I feel about our team, where if they just follow the systems and the processes that we have in place, how leads come in, like our team members know that if a lead comes in, they don't respond within an hour, it gets reassigned to somebody else. They know that when they set an appointment, they create a deal card which feeds into Sisu. Batter works off of follow up boss for the lead accountability piece. So we're able to keep really tight accountability around the brokerage and lead side. And then on their spear stuff, Batter will give them reminders, but we never sweep that. That's theirs. So
Good. So talk about meetings and accountability. You guys meet 3 times a week with 3 meetings a week. Why that cadence and what happens in those meetings?
yeah, that's a great question. And I had a really interesting insight this week. So what we used to do was one Tuesday meeting from 9:30 to 10:30. People would come in and everybody's happy to be there. But then outside of that 1 hour, we've got a 5,400 square foot office. I could spot check the office at any given point in the day, and there's 2 people in here. So it kind of became,
Horrible feeling, isn't it?
it is because, like as an agency owner, you want there to be a buzz in the office and you want people to come in. But I also understand that agents are out hopefully doing what they're doing. High producers are producing. And I really think before I had a team, it was just kind of like a hope and a prayer that agents would be doing what they're doing. And I'd sit down with them and find out, I didn't call anybody this week. So no follow-up boss. We know how many calls they make. We have lead accountability standards that you have to make 100 dials a week, which is nothing, in my opinion, or 2 money time pond shifts, come to 2 hours of training a week, and come to 2 team meetings a week. And if you don't, then you're off of leads the following week. What I really try to push with our team is that the inbound leads are the silver platter. Like somebody's going to come in, they're going to call in and say, hey, I got to list my house or I want to buy a house. That's a layup. And what we want is to drive accountability to say, hey, if you want the layups, you don't get game time unless you come to practice and put the hard work in. So the hard work is the outbound dialing and working the money time pound shifts and the leads that we already have. But the insight that I had this week was about 2 months ago, we implemented what's called a winner's circle, and we do it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 9:30. And what the winner's circle is agents come in, we talk about wins and gratitude. So it gets some really quick wins within the group. And it's fun. People are happy to talk about what they just put under contract, what they just sold. We share some challenges that, maybe everybody else should know about. But then what we do is we declare, hey, first thing we do is we check back on what they recently declared from the last winner's circle. So we said, hey, you said you were going to make 40 calls, have X amount, 2-minute conversations, and set X amount of appointments. And then they have to report back how many calls they did, how many conversations they had, and how many appointments they set. And then before we leave, everybody has to declare what they're going to do for activity. So it almost becomes a little bit of a gut check when we come into the next meeting. And you have to, if you're going to declare goose eggs and say, well, I didn't do anything to move the needle forward in my business, it's probably not a really good feeling for an agent to say that. So it's some shared in group accountability. So
Good, dude. Super good. You guys excited about Zillow Flex?
I think so. I think the biggest thing is we'll be first in our market to have Zillow Flex. We're a small market, 60,000 in the proper, 100,000 in the metro. There's only 275, 300 agents in our market.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and our agency is about 55 agents. So, we have really good market share in terms of agents and sales volume. So, but we'll be the very first team in our market to become Flex. So I think it's an opportunity.
It's a huge opportunity, bro.
Yeah, and what I've heard is with Flex is if we're sitting at, I don't know, our best to Zillow scores at 99% better than other Zillow teams. So as long as we keep our metrics tight and do what we're supposed to do, it should increase our lead flow pretty substantially, that's what I'm excited about.
Good. Absolutely. What other leads are you guys running right now?
I do Whitley. I think I got that from you off of one of your podcasts that I heard
Our
from.
Facebook leads.
Yeah. We do pay-per-click with Filopo.
How are those pay-per-click? How are those going?
It's one of those things that if you call a lead once, you're probably not going to convert it. And, if you call them 10, 12, 15 times over the course of, 10, 12, 15 days, half of them are going to say it was, I just clicked on something, I'm good. But if you continuously email market to them, eventually everybody's going to transact eventually. So you're building a database. And I think that's the toughest thing in this industry is that everybody wants the right now. We want to show a client one house. And if they don't write an offer, well, let's wait for the next lead because that's going to be the magic goose, the golden goose that's going to
That's the
write an
one
offer.
that's going to pay the bill this month.
Yeah. But really what we need to be doing, I think Nick McLean said that more than 50% of leads convert after 6 or 12 months. I can't remember what the number was.
Yeah, no, and there's lots of data behind that. With the accountability piece we were talking about, how do you do it so it doesn't feel heavy on you or like you're micromanaging on the people that you're trying to hold accountable?
Well, I think it comes back to you just set the rules. You just say, hey, these are the rules. Like when somebody joins the team, they know what the rules are. And it's been, this last year, there's been a lot of changes within the team as we're building out infrastructure. But I think just being vocal about, hey, this is what our standards are. And then you let the standards, you hold the line and let the standards and the rules run the team. And I don't have to be the bad guy because I say everybody on the team's held to the same standard. This is why I can't have you on leads this week. Or
Yeah,
this is why, you're off of leads until you get your conversion up.
super easy. You guys came up with standards and you drew your fucking line in the sand. Say, here's the line, right?
Yep.
There's no black or white. You're either
Yep.
here or you're over here. You know what over here is, so be over there. Right? Like
Yeah. I,
let's
I
keep it
listened.
real
I listened
simple.
to one. I chimed in for one of your team meetings, and I think it's very easy, to say to agents, hey, your exact words were, if you're not down to hustle on the leads, that's fine. You don't have to work the leads. If you just want to work your sphere and lean into all the other leverage and support here, you can. But you're also not going to get inbound if you don't want to work the leads. So,
Yeah,
and
real simple.
it's not a punishment. It's just, hey, this is how we're running the business. Here's the rules. If you want this, and you can choose whether or not you want to partake. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Like, but that's the thing. I tell this story often. Just my top agent last month, and maybe my number one or two agent for the last 4 years on the team. Bro, I haven't seen this guy since a Christmas party like 3 or 4 years ago. He's been the number one or two agent every year. He doesn't take a single fucking team lead, and he
yeah,
does just fine. He likes the leverage that the team provides. Caveat, if he needs it. He sells plenty of houses. I'm not over there trying to hold him accountable to stuff that's going to have him sell less houses. I was on a coaching call the other day. Said, well, what do I do with this person? I'm well, how many houses do they sell a year? 40 houses a year. Great. You do nothing. Right? You ask them if they need help with anything. And if they don't, you don't try to micromanage them. This guy who I'm talking about, the number one guy on my team, he doesn't come to meetings, right? He also is not taking any leads or has any expectations to get any.
and I think that's one of the beauties that we have, the flexibility of running the brokerage side. I know in some of the rev share models where it's like, hey, if this person doesn't want to be on the team and be held accountable to these standards, X, Y, and Z, they can just go be an agent within that ecosystem. For us, the beauty of it is if somebody doesn't want to be on the team and doesn't want to be held accountable to some of those standards, they still get to bolt onto our system and they get to be here.
Absolutely.
And like you said, I've got agents that are doing, my top performer did 75 deals. I've got an agent that did 50 deals. Like, just leave them alone and let them go sell and do their thing. And if they need help, I'm here. We have staff that they have resources they know they can plug into. And we just changed our model with rolling out a team and putting, some of the resources inside of the team. We rolled out a cap to our independent agents. That's a caveat and an incentive for them to retain and then also recruit to and say, hey, you're running your business, bring it here, run your business. And, there's a finite amount of value or finite amount of money that we'll extract in exchange for the value we provide.
Yeah, love it. Love it. And also like one of the ways I learned this from my mentor, Perry Belcher, is, one of the ways that you grow a business is by having more offers. And that can be interpreted a lot of ways, but this is how I interpret it in real estate. when you run a team in brokerage is if I have more shit, downline play, indie side play, lead play, there's a home for anybody. If they believe
Yeah.
in our leadership, it comes to a thing where, well, it's not the money that's the most important thing. Like, of all these options I have for you, of all these offers that are on the table, which one makes the most sense? And that's the one that we have. And that's the one that we'll support you with. Good, dude. Good. So, scaling a brokerage and scaling the team now, what are some challenges you've been facing?
So when we acquired our brokerage in 2020, the headcount was around, 30, 35 agents, 2 locations. We got up to around 55, 57 independent agents. We have had a handful of agents that exited the business this year. And throughout the last year, the challenging part has been, and I'm glad we're through it, building the foundation of the team. And there's no teams in my market. A team in my market is, one person that's a rainmaker, and there's 2 or 3 buyers agents that work underneath of them. And I don't know, I don't think they really do much for lead gen. So this type of team, almost like we basically built a small team ridge inside of our brokerage. It's been a lot of infrastructure to build out, implementing follow up boss, Sisu, adding a second CRM, and still trying to our independent agents to love. It's just because there's a lot going on. We're at 4 locations right now. So yeah, and actually, heading into this year, it's brick and mortar space, I think, is something to really evaluate. I think as we look towards the future, I think a big piece of our value offering will probably be more shared space. Just, hey, we want to be local. We want to have a brick and mortar presence, but maybe it doesn't need to be as big as what it is, and it's shared. If you need to come in and work, drop in, you can use any of the offices. Yeah, I mean, I think just some of the spot check of the offices where, I might walk through the office and 2 agents are here, no agents are here. I think that is something that we'll probably look, long term look towards the future as more shared space. So.
Yeah, totally. I had that conversation with a bunch of coaching calls yesterday about office space. It was fascinating. What role has coaching played for you personally and in your team's growth?
Well, I have 2 coaches, somebody that I was, already working with prior to joining Reside. And the beauty of Reside is we get Cheplack for an hour, which it's group coaching, but it almost feels like one-on-one, and you get them for an hour. You can ask any question, and
You
then
got his cell phone number if you need it.
yeah, seriously. I mean, I fired him text messages and he'll text back, and which is really cool to see. But, coaching, I coached with Nick for a while. Then I started coaching with Jessica. And I think the biggest thing is having a sounding board and, somebody they're not inside of our ecosystem every day. So they're not tunnel visioned, and it becomes kind of hey, what are you doing? What are you thinking? It's a good feedback loop. The other beauty of the coaching is, trying to learn from people. I mean, to me, Reside is just a massive shortcut. It's a massive shortcut to you take the mistakes that you were probably going to make, or, one of the things that I love about Reside is that private Facebook group. And we have team leaders from Florida to Seattle to, Boston, to Sacramento.
More than one in Sacramento now. Yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it is you can ping ideas off of like, hey, what's everybody doing on lead gen? What is everybody doing on, pick a topic. You don't have to walk the plank alone.
Yes. Love that. Now, in your experience, what you've experienced, what's the one thing you think a lot of brokerage owners and team leaders get wrong about, like building the cultural aspect of the business?
Culture is such a hot button word. Everybody wants to say we have.
Dude, and it has been for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I hate sitting down in an interview and, oh, our culture is awesome because, and I always say, talk is cheap. Our culture is awesome. Just because anybody can say that, it can't be a definable metric. Now, I think my brokerage team, like any brokerage or team, it goes through, there's things that ebb and flow. You lose some agents, and then, sometimes I can cast out on other agents, and you have to go, reassure some agents that we're here to support you, and we want you to be here, and this is the right place to be. But then there's also times where it's like you're just riding this high for 6, 9, 12 months, and everything is just rocking. And I think the interesting thing about this industry is I've had agents about every 2 to 3 years. I have agents come to me and they'll say, it feels like things have changed. It feels like the culture's changed. That's going to happen because there's an 87% turnover rate in this industry. And the culture is predicated on who's here at the time. I found a newspaper article from 2019 from our brokerage. And I want to say it was like 75% or 80% of the people had either gotten out of the industry, moved, a couple went to a different brokerage. But the recruiting aspect is so important in this business because if I lose two agents, okay, what's my net? Did I recruit 10 this year? And that's what you always have to be looking at.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, if you had to boil it down, what's the biggest leadership lesson you've learned building this team?
It's funny, I've talked to my business partner about this. Being, I don't want to say, as we've gone through this, we've made changes to the brokerage, and because we're not operating, just as a brokerage anymore, one of the things that we've been wanting to do is give a carrot to our independent agents, and that comes in the form of a better compensation structure, and then really laying out the value offerings on an a la carte basis, but being more succinct in our decision making. You will take as long as you need to make a decision. And what I found was until my back was against the wall to finally pull the trigger and make a decision, it took me 9 months too long to make decisions, because what your agents want from you is they want clarity and they want to know where the ship is heading. And the longer you sit in indecision, the more uneasiness it's going to create. And I know that, we've just gone through that, and that's a huge leadership lesson that we need to be more decision making and reassure agents.
I remember that. I was all, dude, you got to do it. You got to text me till you get it done.
I never texted you.
You never texted me.
I never texted. That was like 6 months ago.
Yeah. But I knew it was done. I got the update. I'm always watching everything.
But
right?
I think the tough thing is I think the toughest thing about running a real estate brokerage is, and team, if I talk to 10 team owners, how you run your team is different than how Nick runs his team. It's different than how Jamie Seneca runs her team and how Jessica
Dude, me and Nick are hella different on the surface.
Yeah.
But in the nuts and bolts, we're pretty much the same. And the thing with Nick is Nick has way more experience than me. I may have sold more houses in bulk. I'm also in a bigger market, but Nick's been at it much, much longer.
But yeah, I think that's the toughest thing. I think is there's a million different ways to slice the pie in this business. And I had really bad decision fatigue on what's the right decision. And sometimes you got to pull the trigger and make a decision.
You do. Where do you see the team in the next 3-5 years?
As Cheplax says, everyone's with us for a season. They're with us for a reason. And hopefully we impact them for a lifetime. I think the team is a huge opportunity for incubation. I think we will continue to run this 2-track system of running a team, but I also know that there may come a day where, as agents build more and more of their sphere business, and we may get to a point down the road where we want to retain team members on the team side. So maybe we change that split structure at some point for retention. You and I talked about that. It's this battle of, holding the line on profitability, but then also the retention piece. But then also we do have that independent side that has those offerings. I started a team 1 year ago. It was me. I was alone, and I hired an assistant who quit in June after I had about 8 team members. But we've grown to 10 team members within a year. We're going to do between 150 to 200 transactions this year. In the first
dude,
year.
You have 5% of the agents on your team in the market.
My goal is to get it to 20.
No, not many teams can say that.
Our goal is to, on the team side, I just looked it up. The number one team at exit in North America did between 200 and 299 sides. So our goal for 2026 is to be the number one team at exit in the world.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. So we think that'd be a pretty cool way to plant the flag. But yeah, I want to get this to 20 to 25 agents. And then, I don't know what it looks like from there. Maybe it grows, maybe it, because as we grow the team, I think, eventually we'll also grow that independent side, because we have an incubation system that we haven't had traditionally.
Yeah, dude, like I've taken my team to be really, really big. And then I've taken it to be pretty, I went from super double mega team to just a medium sized team now, 49 agents. It just depends on what you want to do, right? So all our options, right? Like I took many of the agents on my team, put them in my downline when I moved over to LPT. Just changing it around and you'll find your way. And especially we're all hanging out, working on it with each other. So it's going to be good. Okay. What advice do you have for anybody listening to this episode?
If you could have fast forwarded me to where I am right now 1 year ago, I would have said, holy shit, there's no way I would have thought that's possible. It's the small wins every single day. And there's going to be times when you want to give up. And I think that's the spirit of an entrepreneur is to just, Hormozy said it, that, it's not who moves the fastest, it's who can last the longest.
Good. I love it. Okay. If somebody wants to send you a referral on a deal and send you some money for a home sale in Iowa, where do they go?
Cell phone, 563-451-2346. If anybody wants to talk, bounce ideas, ask questions, how I started, I've changed comp plans a couple of times and labored on what the right way to do things is. And I'd be happy to open my playbook to anybody that is needing help. So.
Well, you heard it here first. Learn from Cody, and also equally important, send him the referrals out there in the Dubuque and the surrounding areas. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Reside podcast with my awesome, very cool guest, Cody Burger. I hope you got something out of this episode. If you did, and even if you didn't, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Come back. We put out a lot of these episodes with all kinds of great team leaders, all kinds of great founders and marketers. Come back and check us out on Reside Platform Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Peace.